Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the virtual meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. It is May 2020. The meeting today is being held electronically to comply with the governor's Safer at Home order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the HRA staff and presenters are participating from their homes or offices. Before we begin, there's a few things we'd like to cover for those listening in and hoping to participate in portions of the meeting. Today, community comment will be the only opportunity to call in to provide comment via phone. Has someone got a couple of devices on? Oh, getting some feedback here. You are allowed to speak about anything in public comment that's not on today's agenda or scheduled for a future public meeting. If you want to call in for community comment, here's the number that you want to call, 800-374-0221, and the conference ID number is 739-4978, 739-4978. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Our executive director and city manager, Scott Neal, will time you, and he'll let you know if you go over the 3-minute mark, and then we'll have you wrap up your comments. We ask that individuals do not repeat information already presented. Call in if you have new comments or information to bring forward. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting using online tools and different software types. There are many people participating from their homes, as you can see. We hope there will not be any issues electronically, but be assured that if we do have any problems technologically, we'll continue the meeting as best we can to assure that there are no glitches in the system. All right, that is the preliminary information we need to pass on to the public. And then we are going to call the meeting to order. And roll call, please, Ms. Garski.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Brindle?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
Commissioner Staunton?
Here.
Chair Hovland?
Here. Next for us is the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag will be shown on the screen for viewers. And my microphone will be on, but apparently nobody else's microphone will be on. So the Pledge of Allegiance begins as follows. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a form of meeting agenda in front of us this morning. Is there anyone who wishes to modify or amend the agenda in any form? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as shown.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, we've got a motion and a second to adopt. Member Fisher is the mover. Who did the second?
Kevin or me.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Garski.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton?
Aye.
Chair Hovland?
Aye. We are now moving on to community comment, and I don't know if there's anyone on the line. We have Director Benarott on the line with us. Do we have anybody in the queue that wants to speak in the public comment portion of the meeting?
Good morning, Commissioners. Currently, we do not have anyone on the line to participate in community comment, though I would encourage you to wait a minute or so before moving on, as there is a slight delay in the broadcast.
All right. We will do that. Anyone else coming on the line? Director Benarott?
No, Chair Hovland, I think it's fine for you to move on at this point.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on from community comment to the adoption of the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda this morning for the HRA. Is there anyone on the HRA, any commissioner who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as shown on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Fisher, or Member Anderson, I think.
Anderson.
Second by Member Brindle, Commissioner Brindle. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Garski.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton?
Aye.
And Chair Hovland?
Aye. And reports and recommendations is next on the agenda for the commissioners this morning. Was that a neigh from somebody's dog?
I think it's Hondo trying to vote.
Oh, it was, I thought maybe it was somebody, community comment. All right. Reports and recommendations. We've got a couple of updates. I think that'll be interesting this morning to get from Bill Neuendorf and also Stephanie Hawkinson. So first up is the Small Business Emergency Assistance Program that we established a month or so ago now. And Bill Neuendorf, our Economic Development Director, has that presentation for us. Director Neuendorf.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. So you're correct. It was about a month and a half ago as the businesses started to really experience some distress related to the pandemic that the city of Edina created the Small Business Loan Fund. At this point, we have awarded the funds, executed the agreements, and the funds have been dispersed. One of our goals was to do this program quickly. This morning, I wanted to recap as far as how the program worked and who the recipients were. So let me pull my my screen up. Let's see, that's my screen, but it's not your screen. There you go. Do you see the presentation? It looks like it should be sharing.
We do.
So I wanted to recap briefly the goals of this program. We did have limited funding, and so we specifically established the program goals not to help every single business. We simply did not have funds for that based on the numbers of businesses that were seeing distress. But we wanted to focus Edina's dollars to be the most impactful. Some of our goals were to provide that local support to help our businesses recover and stay in business when public behavior, when the customer returns. We wanted to focus on gaps in other programs. Certainly there's federal money, there's state money. In the last couple weeks, the county, Hennepin County, has provided some money. And we also wanted to be cautious in that we helped businesses that were indeed viable, rather than bailing out businesses that perhaps were in rocky ground even before the pandemic hit. So in order to be eligible, of course, you needed to be a business located in the city of Edina, in a commercial and industrial district. And one of our biggest eligibility criteria was to be a brick and mortar location that thrived on foot traffic, on that face-to-face customer transaction. We focused truly on the small end of small businesses with annual revenues capped at about $1 million. And also we focused not on self-employed businesses, but businesses that employ others. So you needed to have at least between 2 to 25 employees on a full-time equivalency. So in essence, we were targeting those small businesses that are kind of the image and the heart of Edina, and businesses that truly have viability after the stay-at-home orders have ended. So we had an application period of about 2 weeks, about a week and a half actually. We did receive 41 different applications. These are the names of the 41 different applicants that we received and reviewed. Those applicants were distributed throughout each of the quadrants of Edina. So using Highway 100 and the Crosstown Highway 62 as kind of our dividing lines, the majority of our applications were received from businesses in the northeast quadrant near 50th and France, 44th and France, and then also the southeast quadrant in the greater Southdale area. We did also receive a few applications from businesses located in the far northwest corner of Edina, Grandview, Lincoln Road, those areas, and also in the southwest quadrant. Staff initially reviewed those applications and determined that a handful were not eligible. Some businesses had yet to open. Some businesses had opened just for a very short period of time and did not meet the criteria for the program. One of the businesses was not even located in Edina. And so after we reviewed the initial run of applications, we found 33 eligible applications to actually review and scrutinize and select among. Those 33 eligible applications were distributed not only geographically, but also we sorted them by the type of business. Retail businesses were the largest category, and also restaurants. We received several applicants from beauty or fitness related businesses, also medical services, and then a variety of other services, dog groomers, those types of other miscellaneous services. As we laid out when the initial program was approved, we convened a panel made up of myself, representing the city, Lori Severson at the Edina Chamber of Commerce, Rachel Thelman at the 50th and France Association, and Rob Smulland with our MCCD Open to Business Advisor. So the panel got together virtually through an online meeting, and we ranked each of those applications on the criteria that's on the screen. We looked at their stability prior to the pandemic. We considered their viability to remain in business, whether or not they got the loan. We looked at their visibility and the impact of their business, their storefront, on the Edina business culture. We looked at the number of face-to-face transactions that they typically do. We looked at their employment count, their lease. Do they have a signed lease to stay in Edina? We also looked at how many years they've been here. The last couple criteria was looking at how they've tried to weather the pandemic so far, whether or not they've pursued other relief programs, whether that was working with their landlord, their lenders, or some of these other federal and state programs. We looked at the extent of disruption, and actually in that category, every business had tremendous disruption, so they all pretty much score the same on that one. We also did look at the residency of owners. Again, our focus here was small local businesses. And then the final criteria was the recovery plan, because certainly while this pandemic is a moving target, we wanted to get some insight as to how the businesses thought they could rebound when this is over. So after reviewing and scoring each of those 33 applications, the panel chose to distribute funds to the top 11 businesses. We had originally planned to fund 10 businesses. As it turns out, the final two were a tie, so we thought we would, rather than just rolling the dice, we thought we would award funds to both of those, the number 10 rated application and the number 11. So those recipients include Peugeot's Wine Cafe, Bluebird Boutique, The Clothes Mentor, European Wax Center, Glow Lounge, Harriet and Alice, Jet Beauty, Nakamura Japanese Restaurant, the Optical Center at 50th and France, Pacifier, and a Snap Fitness. Those awarded businesses were distributed primarily in the Northeast quadrant, many businesses at 50th in France, also at 44th in France, and then the remaining businesses were in the Southeast quadrant in the greater Southdale area. the majority of the loans went to retail shops. That was the part of the focus of the business. A few went to beauty and fitness type businesses, and the final awards went to 2 local restaurants. So as I mentioned when I began, at this point, all of the loan agreements have been signed and executed. All of the funds have been dispersed. I've been working with each of the recipients as they continue to put their plans together to fully reopen. But the next steps for the program are to have each business report back to us later this summer to demonstrate how they actually used the funds. From conversations, the vast majority were using the funds to keep current with their rent and suppliers so that when the businesses have been allowed to reopen, they can continue to have inventory and stock and stay in good graces with their landlords and their vendors. And then in the next 2 years, we've asked that each business that received a loan just give us an update. How are things going? We hope your doors are still open. How did your year turn out? And then in the summer of 22, that's the 2-year anniversary of the loan, we intend to close out those loans. We fully expect that each of those loans will be forgiven. It's unlikely that we'll see any of the money returned to us. But in order to be forgiven, we will follow the criteria that was in the program rules. That criteria was also included in the loan agreement, and it's fairly simple. The business needs to stay in business for 2 years. They need to employ about the same number of people as they employed before the pandemic, and they need to be willing to file these couple reports to check in and let us know how they're doing. So we try to create a very simple program that could disperse funds to needy businesses as reasonably quickly as possible. And I'm happy to provide the support or to provide this report. Also happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, well done, Bill. That was a nicely put together program. Are there questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Brindle here. So we did get a question about how the applications were compared and of the different criteria that I guess I'll call them lenses for the lack of a better word. But in looking at the applications, we heard about some of the criteria. What were the criteria that identified some of the businesses that did not qualify? For example, Bill, you mentioned one where the business wasn't in Edina. That's pretty obvious. But what are some of the qualifiers that might eliminate a business? And then when comparing when you've got, let's say you've got 4 restaurants and you end up with 2, what is it about the 2 that made them a more compelling candidate?
Sure. Several questions there. So of the 41 applications, about 8, well, exactly 8 were rejected. A couple businesses had submitted their applications twice. Those were easy to reject. A few businesses, I mentioned one was not located in Edina. They were located in a neighboring city. Some of the other applications were, one was located in a residential district, not a commercial or industrial zone. Some of the others were brand new to Edina. One was, and these are the sad stories because each and every one of these businesses is seeing some major distress in their business model. But part of our criteria was to be able to work with businesses that have been in Edina for a while, that have, in essence, paid these taxes, because that's where the revenue came from, was property tax. And so for some of these businesses that are brand new to Edina or getting ready to open their doors, those were the ones where we couldn't measure whether or not they had a chance for success in Edina. We hope that they do. After speaking with each of the businesses, I think each and every one is going to do what it takes to retrench and regroup. But as far as being able to measure their chances for success using the very simplified criteria that we used, we just couldn't measure that. So that essentially was why those 8 businesses were eliminated. As far as selecting between the businesses, we did use a scoring system in order to have some level of objectivity to it. I went through the criteria. It was in one of those slides. You had asked what differentiates one restaurant from the other. That's where it gets tricky, because certainly there's some subjectivity when we review these applications. And that's where we relied on the expertise of an outside group. Rob at the Open to Business program, his organization has actually been contracted by DEED. They've gone through all the state applications. So on a day-to-day basis, the city of Edina works with this organization to help advise local businesses. It's a initial service. Some smaller businesses take advantage of it. Larger businesses would usually hire their own accountants and attorneys. But Rob helped us understand some of the business financials. And there certainly were a couple businesses that scored reasonably well. But when he looked at their financials, we just scratched our head as far as how these businesses are staying in business. I mean, that was a sad conversation to have, because we know that each of these businesses is working it. I mean, there's sweat and blood and pride put forth in here, but we wanted to be careful that we weren't putting these funds into a business that might not be here tomorrow. So with some of the restaurants, some of the numbers look good from the restaurants. One of the applications that we did not select as a restaurant had just renewed their lease and had renegotiated the terms of their lease for the next 10 years. They just executed that lease. It was in the midst of the pandemic. So it was in the midst of this loan application, and they had found a way to move forward with their landlord. And we felt that if in the middle of this pandemic, renegotiating their lease, while they're certainly seeing distress, we felt that the landlord had worked that out with them, and we didn't think that the business actually needed the money, whereas other businesses are struggling more, and we felt would benefit. Those are hard decisions to make, but that's why we wanted to use a panel and look at different perspective and different criteria. We did not do a full audit of any of these financial books. Our goal was to take a snapshot, get a quick peek, and make a quick decision to turn the funds around quickly. So certainly, had we spent more than a day going through the financials of 33 different applications, we would have maybe come up with a different outcome. But the program rules wanted to turn the funds around quickly, and the panel felt that this group of businesses were the best to award to.
Were there any minority-owned businesses, or did the application query for that?
Yeah, good question. Minority ownership was not a criteria in the program. Reviewing each of the applications, we had a strong turnout just based on the people I talked with and the ownership that I saw. We did have a strong turnout of minority-owned businesses and also women-owned businesses. So that wasn't a primary goal, but I think that was part of the outcome.
Okay.
All right, good. Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else have questions or comments for Director Neuendorf?
I just,
Commissioner Fisher?
I don't have any specific questions. I just would compliment you on how quickly you were able to put this together, and thank you for the concise and excellent presentation.
I would reiterate too that when we thought it was important to help small business in our community, you came up with a plan in a hurry when that was important, and I think you did it in a pretty objective way, as best you can, because there is subjectivity involved at the end of the day too, as an element. So, as pointed out by Commissioner Brindle. So, thanks for that good work. My understanding from being on a call with MLC folks last Friday is that based on the structure, how we structured these as loans, use this money as for loan purposes that could be potentially forgivable as opposed to grants, that we may be able to recover those monies through the CARES Act funds that are allocated to the city of Edina, and that's being looked at, I think, by people associated with MLC. So on the Friday call, the estimate was that Edina would be somewhere in the $50 per capita range for the receipt of funds, which would put us at about 2.4 million, if I remember right. And Manager Neal may have some comment on this, but you know, certainly as we look at our small businesses and the sort of prolonged impact on them, if we can recover funds from the CARES Act or use funds from the CARES Act to further support small business, that might be something we want to think about as we move along here. Manager Neal, anything, or Executive Director?
Yes, Your Honor. We're hearing in my city manager peer groups, we're hearing the same thing. The numbers on the distribution formula for CARES Act dollars do vary between the House and Senate bills, and even what the governor is thinking about. So anywhere from $2.5 million to $4.5 million, depending on whose bill you're looking at. And we're also hearing that the definition of expenses that could be applicable to this money is beginning to expand as the feds get a little more permissive on that. And one of the definitions has been programs like this that are organized as forgivable loan programs or look like they're going to fall within the definition of a COVID-19 related expense for the CARES Act. So that would be important, and we'll continue monitoring that legislation as it goes forward.
Good. Thank you. Anything else on that topic? All right. Well, good work overall. I hope these businesses are going to make it. Next, we've got the update from Stephanie Hawkinson, our Affordable Housing Development Manager, on the use of those $100,000 in monies that we sent over to VII for emergency rental assistance.
Correct. So I'll see if I can queue up my, can you see it? Because I have lost view of the WebEx.
We cannot.
You cannot?
No.
Very strange. Okay. How about now?
Starting to come. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is a week 6 status report, the last time that I was able to get any data from VIB. And I would like to first say that they have been swamped. They're trying to hire some additional folk, but their data entry is behind. In fact, I talked to a colleague over at Bloomington, and they've asked for some Bloomington city workers to work at VIB on the city dollar, ones that were underutilized due to stay-at-home orders. So there are some city staff that are putting in some hours at VIIP to try to address the needs that they have. So on March 1st, we had our first confirmed case. And a month later, the City Council approved the $100,000 grant for emergency rental assistance. As of May 21st, so it's already a week old, just shy of $80,000 had been used of that $100,000. There are 60 unduplicated Edina households have received aid. Many were first time that they have never ever needed to receive aid before, and they were caught in this difficult time and they didn't know what to do. The average request is $1,394 with the median at $1,135, and this is just the Edina statistics. Roughly 40% were non-English speaking. So 60% were English speaking. That is the only real data that I was able to receive. According to some industry experts, they expect the need will just continue to increase in the summer. Rent revenues have actually been fairly good between the stimulus check and March rent being paid. There's just this delay effect. Now, the VIIP did inform me that when screening folks, they looked to see that there were no other sources for them. There was concern when this was first passed that unemployment insurance and the CARES Act would cover rent. There are a lot of folks that don't qualify for either. The CARES Act was contingent upon getting unemployment insurance, but if you are self-employed or you're in the gig economy, you don't qualify for that. So the people served that they think thus far without being able to do full data entry were folks that worked in restaurants and salons. In salons, you rent a chair, or in restaurants, as waiters or chefs, it was an industry that was hard hit. And you may have already seen this, but this is a letter from someone to Mayor Hovland thanking you all for making the decision to provide this emergency rental assistance, because they didn't know where else to go. So it's a very short presentation. In part because they're behind in data. They're just really, really, really busy over there.
Sounds like they might be close to have expended all of the funds that we sent over there with 89.
They have $20,000 left as of a week ago. The county has given them some aid, but the county aid is limited to $1,500 per family over the course of 3 months. So they can either get a 1 month of $1,500, or they can get $500 a month for 3 months, which is clearly not enough to cover rent. It would be good for 1 month, but as you saw, the averages, the median was $1,100, and the average is about $1,300 a month. The county assistance from the CARES Act won't be sufficient. And they expect a peak in July of need.
It seems clearly like, from what Manager Neal said, that rental assistance wouldn't be a COVID-19 related city expense. Has there been any discussion about that in the city manager group?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there has. At this point, I think the guidance that we've received is that pretty clearly it's not being considered as an allowable expense under the CARES Act because it's in a grant form instead of a loan form. But that, as I said, the guidance that we've been getting on that from the Department of Treasury, U.S. Department of Treasury, has been getting a little more permissive as time's gone on here. So we are advocating for that, and we will keep our eye on it because it is an expense that's definitely related to the virus, of course.
Good. Thank you. Commissioners have any other comments or questions for Ms. Hawkinson? Member Brindle, Commissioner Brindle?
Thank you. Well, with this program and really the other one, if the need is, if the peak is not here yet, is there any thought of repeating one or both of these programs?
Is that a question for me or a question for your colleagues?
And I guess it might be a question for Executive Director Neal, and as to whether there's any thought of making these running these programs again.
There is from my perspective. We haven't brought that proposal back to you today, but I can see economic circumstances being what we think they are going to be over the summer, that we may advance that proposal back to you. We were able to act pretty quickly the last time when we had the discussion with the HRA, so I think we could be able to do that again. One piece of good news that I was going to share with you during my report is that we have received the affordable housing fee from the Tom Lund project. So that came in last week. We've been waiting for that for quite a while. And so in terms of affordable housing funding, our cupboard is a bit more full today than it was a couple of weeks ago.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Manager Neal, is there any prediction on when cities might be receiving funds? It sounds like with the legislature having closed up for this session, that this is kind of on the governor now. He could, by, I think, executive order, disperse these funds. Has there been any conversation amongst your city manager colleagues about that?
There has, Mr. Chair, and a lot of that discussion has been around the terms of what are typically called the Marquardt bill and the Rosen bill. And while there were differences in the content of both of those bills, both of them had the same date that they wanted this money out the door from the state level back to local governments, and that date was June 12th. So it's still entirely possible that even though they haven't passed either one of those bills, and I know they're still in discussion with the governor's office, it's entirely possible that we could get our allocation, or cities could get their allocation of the CARES Act money by the middle of June.
All right. Any prediction on when they would go back into special session, if at all?
We've also heard middle of June as well for that.
Very good. I'm sure there's some negotiating going on.
I'm sure there is too.
Well, are you thinking from a timing standpoint that it might be the middle of June or the end of June when you come back to us with respect to both rental assistance and small business assistance ideas?
Well, from a timeline standpoint, we're going to do our best to put everything that we need to put in front of you by June 16th, because there's a gap. There's the summer gap in council meetings from June 16th to July 21st. So if we have a sense that it's going to be necessary to do another round of funding for the two programs we've talked about today, we'll want to get that in front of you here in a couple of weeks, which means from a staff perspective, we've got to be developing the presentation and any rule changes we might want to implement in another week, so in probably next week or the week after. So we are actively working on this right now.
All right, thank you. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that anticipation.
Yep.
Another issue that we had with the CARES Act was that we could use it for COVID-related expenses, that is, funds received. But there was early on a belief that we could not use it for replacement of lost revenue. And I don't know if anything's happening at the congressional level to cure that, amend the CARES Act, get another series of funding in place with respect to cities. Have you heard anything on that front?
Actually, I have. I saw an interview I think it was last night, with Speaker Pelosi, where she mentioned several times lost revenue, helping local governments replace lost revenue. So I know that's on, at least in the House bill at the national level, at the federal level. I think that is not at all on the Senate side, so that's going to be an issue that is up for some compromise. But I know it's being discussed in the next round of CARES Act funding.
All right, very good. That prompt any other thoughts from commissioners? All right, thanks for those two reports. Those are great updates. We have now any correspondence, Ms. Garski, that's come in other than the one you noted in the agenda?
Nope, just the one letter came in.
Okay, all right. And then commissioner comments. Anyone of the commissioners have a comment they wish to make with regard to any particular matter?
Just a quick one. This Sunday is the commencement convoy around Edina, and I know our neighborhood has decorations, I think, that are going to be distributed around. And so I think, I don't know, we've got, I think, 8 graduates in our area here. So between Sally Lane and Paiute Drive, Paiute Circle, and Paiute Pass. So it'll be fun to see everybody and wish the young people well. And then this is the final week of school, and I think we've all gotten emails from some of the 9th graders asking for some help on a project they were working on, and I personally really enjoy the opportunity to correspond with young people about what they're thinking about, and so I really enjoyed that, and have gotten feedback that they really appreciated the conversation and the back and forth that they had with all of us. So thanks to all of us, and congratulations to the kids on a good year in school.
Thank you. Anyone else have any commissioner comments? All right, Manager Neal, Executive Director Neal.
The only comment I had is I was going to tell you that about the affordable housing payment. I think that's an important milestone for that program. That project continues to move forward at a pretty fast clip. We are hoping that the piling is done very, very soon. It should be done. It was supposed to be done by the middle of May, but now it's looking like it should be done possibly by the end of this week. So I will be looking into that today with Dave Fisher and having that discussion.
All right, that's good. Yeah, we've had several emails about the pile driving over there on the Guitar Center site. So they keep drifting in. Anything else? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and second to adjourn. Further discussion? Roll call, please, Ms. Garski.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Brindle,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Staunton,
Aye.
Chair Hovland.
Aye. Member Anderson, thanks for maintaining those high in-person standards there with your shirt and tie. All right. You also look like you might have gone to North Dakota to get a haircut. I'm not sure, but.
Are you doing it in North Dakota?
Yeah. I talked to Dick Crockett the other day, and that was their big Saturday outing over Memorial Day weekend. They drove to Campo and got haircuts at great clubs.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We stand adjourned.